you know? Oh yeah, I got legend. Seriously. So there's just so many examples of things that can go wrong.
So there's one person in our office who abhors when advertisers only go after certain communities on their month, Hispanic Heritage Month, API Month, and African American Month, and then they're gone the rest of the year. So, you know, that goes back to the respect, and it goes back to the make it a priority and put your money where your mouth is, and, you know. So I think that's one mistake that we see is, you know, people will allocate, okay, ethnic media, we're gonna just, you know, we'll allocate money per month, per community, and then we're out of here. And we've checked the box, done.
Mohamud?
I think, you know, you have to also show respect, you know, just don't send information to them and tell them to publish or to use it, you know, dictating them. That's the wrong way to, to engage. And also, you know, when you think of ad, think of the different groups of the ethnic media. We speak different language, we have different culture, and we don't accept all things one will accept, not me. What I accept, not others will accept. So think of that also. Consult with us. Send us the information, you know, so we can give you best advice. And in case, you know, you think to reach my community as a Somali or East African or Muslim community, and you send me Budweiser or Heineken, that will never sell in my community, and they won't accept that. So think what's going, and the image you're using also is important. That image has to also resonate, as they said, to the community, so they will connect you.
Chris?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and this speaks to the advertising and marketing piece, is oftentimes people take ethnic media and they get this random bucket of money that they throw into an hat and then want to divide it up equally without doing the research about how much it's going to cost with this outlet, how much it's going to cost with that outlet. And you know, it sounds good to say, well, we got a bucket of money that's set aside for ethnic media, but when you don't know what the costs are, and so you're talking to somebody, and it's like, well, we've got $500 to spend with you, we got $500 to spend with this person, $500 to spend with that person, and this is over the course of the whole year. So, you know, our publications are only worth $500 a year, or our outlets are worth $500 a year, is an insult when you're talking to us. And then, you know, I don't want you to come back to me and say, well, you know, International Examiner only charged us X amount for whatever they're doing, because you're mixing apples and oranges. I don't know what their business is. They're not into my business. There's different things to take into consideration as far as pricing and the structure of ad campaigns. But you know, definitely, you know, that's one of the things that we get quite often is people have, well, I got this much set aside for ethnic media, and it's got to last me the whole year. And you know, I'm talking to them in January about doing an ad campaign, and they're in turn saying, well, send me your calendar of events, and so they might see, you know, we do a Martin Luther King special edition, a Black History Month edition, you know, things like that. Say, okay, well, let me do one of those, and then their budget doesn't allow them to do it because they've only allocated $500, $200, you know, whatever it is. It's not enough to do any business. But I mean, that's one way to really not do business with us, is to come in with that. I mean, it's better on the front end for you to negotiate your budget based upon what you know it's going to cost to do business with us.
Thank you.
I have two quick examples, I guess, of bad examples. There was one press release followed by a phone call, and it was sort of like a breaking story. They called us up, hey, could you get someone over to SeaTac? We have this airplane, and it's painted like R2-D2, and you should come on over. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, no, we're based in the International District. We can't get someone down there. I don't know if there's, like I love Star Wars, but you know, I don't think we can do this. And they're like, oh, but it's Japan Airlines. I'm like, yeah, I still don't think we can make that. And the other one was just an ad. It was for a cheeseburger. And it was two like kung fu guys going to attack each other, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon style. And you know, actually, I think I just started, and we actually ran the ad, and it was like, oh. But anyhow, yeah. Bad examples of not doing due diligence or communicating.
I think one mistake is also to assume that the audience that you're speaking to is monolithic. There are many shades of differences and diversity within specific communities. So people come and ask me all the time, should this be translated in traditional or simplified Chinese characters? I'm like, well, I have to ask you like a million questions in order for me to answer that. Like, you know, where are these people? Where do they live? What's the form? You know, what's the age? What's the income? And that is all dependent. Answering all those questions is necessary to find out which form of Chinese characters you need to use. Even the font that you use speaks to different kinds of communities. So you need to just really be knowledgeable of all of the different shades within, especially those very large groups.
Ross?
Very good question from Ben. Thank you. This one's from Drew. Can you discuss some of the valuable journalism being done by ethnic media, particularly on subjects neglected by other outlets?
I think that there's an incredible amount of opinion and editorial leadership going on in ethnic media right now. If you ever read the, you know, from the editor's desk kind of section in a lot of these outlets, you'll see just the incredible amount of thought that's put into opinion pieces in ethnic media. And you know, this hit me when I was working at the International Examiner when the Virginia Tech shooting happened. And everyone, all the Asian Americans around the country were talking about how do we wrestle with the idea that someone of our community has committed such a horrific act. And then it was, why are we taking the blame as a minority community of what one person did? If a white shooter went around and all the white people saying, why are white people so bad? What happened? No, you know? So that kind of thoughtfulness and bringing the community together, you know, we had an event, we talked about it, you know, we like sort of cried over bubble tea, and then, you know, we ran a great editorial on that subject of reflecting into our identities and why is it that we as minorities bear the burden of so much when something goes horribly wrong.
Quick example, the District 2 race was a huge example. Mainstream media just totally ignored covering any of the issues going on in District 2. They thought it was going to be a shoo-in, and it ended up being a very, very close race. And the only coverage really was through ethnic media, so that's an example.
I think there's quite a few examples of the ethnic media taking the lead on a lot of issues, not only locally but around the country. And unfortunately, I think the ethnic media doesn't really get the credit due for being the catalyst of a bigger movement that's taking place. You talk about the Black Lives Matter movement. That was a movement that started, that was getting traction in African American media across this country, that went mainstream. You talk about the story most recently, what was going on in Flint with the water, and that's something that ethnic media's been talking about for months, even though it's just popped up in mainstream media in the last couple weeks. When you talk about, you talk about education, you talk about some of the things that are going on with Ferguson. The list goes on and on about the things that ethnic media, and particularly, I'm talking from African American perspective right now, the African American media is out there telling the story, and then we have a network of publications, over 200 black newspapers across the country. So we share that information to help spread it across the country. The same thing happens on the radio side. With, you have people like Al Sharpton, Warren Ballantyne, even people like D.L. Hughley, and Tom Joyner. It's entertainment, but they also just disseminate information about what's going on in the country in various sectors as well. And so in those stories, like I said, they circle in our community, and then finally go mainstream, but then nobody really knows where they came from. I look at a story that we had here, and this is probably about 10, 15 years ago when Carl Mack, anybody remembers Carl Mack is president of the Seattle King County NAACP, there was an issue with the game Ghettopoly. And so Carl actually was on my show and broke the story about what was going on with Ghettopoly, and then we wrote a story and had it in our publication. Then all of a sudden, we shot that across the country, and then there was these protests all across the country in front of Urban Outfitters, and they finally, pulled the game from their shelves. But at the end of the day, nobody realized that that particular protest or demonstration started here in Seattle. It was this national movement, and that people were giving credit to something that started back east. And it doesn't matter where the credit actually comes from. The fact that, you know, we started something and it created some positive change, not only in our community here locally, but across the country, is what the bottom line is. But I think at the end of the answer to the question, there's a lot of good work that's going on in every city, every country, county, every state across here that ethnic media is on the forefront of drawing attention to.
Martha?
I'm going to talk about product because we have been talking about serious subjects, but we like to buy cars, all of us, but we buy cars from a completely different angle. And so what we did is we had to actually get my brother Gustavo engaged because mainstream auto industry talks to mainstream world. And they invite you once in a while to test a car or check a car. But guess what? We buy cars every single day. And in fact, I was in Detroit and they were doing a research, they were showing the data that the fastest growing segment of buying cars are ethnic world, all our minorities. And if they would put like 2% more in advertising, they'll buy 20 billion more or some number like it was huge if they would just put the media. But my point was that we had to actually start stepping back and saying, okay, yes, we know that the auto industry is not sponsoring our media, but at the end of the day, our audience required for us to inform them about the car industry and what cars are. So Gustavo took it upon him to now test drive the car every week and write about the car.